If you are listening to this right now, there's a good chance you've asked yourself a question you're almost ashamed to say out loud. Why am I always so tired? And why can't I just get it together? You wake up exhausted, you drag yourself through the day, the smallest tasks, answering an email, washing a dish, feel physically heavy. And at the end of it all, you look in the mirror and you blame yourself. You think, I'm just lazy, I'm weak. Everyone else is coping, so something must be wrong with me. I want you to pause that thought right here. This audiobook is not here to judge you. It is here to show you that what you are feeling is not a character flaw. It is not laziness. It is a signal from your body, your brain, and your nervous system that something deeper is going on. You are not broken. You are simply in a state of protection. And most importantly, it is not your fault. In the next hours, we are going to gently unpack the real reasons you are always tired and unmotivated, even when you get enough sleep, and even when you try your hardest to push through. But we aren't just going to analyze the problem. You will learn simple, realistic ways to start feeling like yourself again, without trying to become a different person overnight. For now, all you need to do is this. Let go of the guilt. Take a breath. Get comfortable. Let's start by rewriting the story you've been telling yourself about laziness and willpower, because the real reason you feel this way is probably not what you think it is. Chapter 1. The Laziness Lie. Let me tell you about Gary. Gary wakes up at 6:30 a.m. He stares at the ceiling for 20 minutes before his body finally agrees to move. He scrolls through his phone, not because he wants to, but because it's the only thing that doesn't require a decision. By 8 a.m., he's already exhausted. Not physically tired, the bed didn't drain him, but something heavier, something he can't name. His apartment is a disaster. Dishes from 3 days ago, laundry that's been almost done for a week. He has a work deadline today. He knows this. He cares about this. But when he tries to open her laptop, his arms feel like they're moving through concrete. And here's the worst part. Gary isn't depressed. He's not clinically anxious. He's not sick. Every doctor he's seen has told him he's fine. His blood work is normal. His thyroid is normal. His iron levels are normal. So what's left? His family says he's lazy. His friends say he needs to just push through it. His inner voice, the cruelest one of all, whispers that he's weak, that everyone else can do this, so why can't he? And so Gary sits there, frozen, hating himself for being unable to do the simplest things, the things everyone else seems to do without thinking. Does this sound familiar? If it does, I need you to hear something right now, before we go any further. You are not lazy. You are not broken, and you are definitely not alone. The word that destroys lives. Let's talk about the word lazy. It's one of the most violent words in the English language, not because it's vulgar, but because of what it does to the person it's aimed at. When someone calls you lazy, or when you call yourself lazy, what they're really saying is, you're choosing not to try, you're morally deficient, you don't care enough. But here's what they don't understand, what nobody talks about. Laziness, true laziness, doesn't exist the way we think it does. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who genuinely doesn't care about anything? Who wakes up and actively chooses to fail? Who feels nothing when their life falls apart? No, because that's not how human beings work. When you see someone who looks lazy, what you're actually seeing is someone in pain, someone whose system is overloaded, someone whose brain and body have quietly, invisibly shut down to protect them from something they can't consciously see. Psychologists have a term for this. They call it functional freeze. Functional freeze, the invisible shutdown. You've heard of fight or flight, right? When you're in danger, your nervous system kicks in. You either run or you throw a punch. It's automatic. It's survival. But there's a third response that nobody talks about: freeze. When an animal in the wild is being hunted and it can't fight and it can't flee, it freezes. It plays dead. The nervous system shuts down all non-essential functions. The animal stops moving, stops thinking, stops doing anything except waiting for the danger to pass. Now here's the thing. Your body doesn't know the difference between a predator chasing you and a life that's slowly crushing you. Overwork, chronic stress, perfectionism, emotional suppression, living in a constant state of "I should be doing more." These things don't feel like a lion chasing you, but to your nervous system, they register the same way. And when your nervous system decides you can't fight your way out of this and you can't run away from your responsibilities, it does the only thing it knows how to do. It freezes you. Not completely. You're still functional, technically. You can still get out of bed sometimes. You can still go to work sometimes. But everything feels impossible. Everything takes 10 times the energy it should. You look lazy, but you're not lazy. You're frozen. The difference between lazy and stuck. Let me be very clear about this distinction because it's the foundation of everything we're going to talk about in this audiobook. A lazy person doesn't care. They feel no guilt, no shame, no internal conflict. They're perfectly fine with doing nothing, and they sleep soundly at night. But you care desperately. You hate that you can't do the things you want to do. You lie awake at night thinking about all the ways you're failing. You feel guilt like a weight on your chest. You beat yourself up constantly. That's not laziness. That's a nervous system that's protecting you from something it perceives as a threat, even if you can't see the threat yourself. And here's the part that makes it even more confusing. The things that trigger this freeze response aren't always obvious. They're not always dramatic. Sometimes it's the cumulative weight of 1,000 small things. A job that slowly drains you. A relationship where you can't be yourself. A life that looks perfect on paper but feels suffocating in reality. Your body is trying to tell you something, but instead of listening, we've been taught to push through, to call it laziness and shame ourselves into action. And that shame, that makes everything worse. The shame spiral. Here's what happens when you believe you're lazy. You wake up tired. You try to force yourself to be productive. You fail. You feel ashamed. That shame releases stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, which make you even more tired, which makes you less productive, which makes you feel even more ashamed. Round and round it goes, the shame spiral. And the worst part, shame is one of the most energy-expensive emotions your body can produce. When you're stuck in shame, you're literally burning through your energy reserves just by feeling bad about yourself. So not only are you frozen, not only are you exhausted, but now you're also using whatever scraps of energy you have left to hate yourself. Does that sound like laziness to you? Or does it sound like someone who's been fighting an invisible war inside their own body for so long that they finally run out of ammunition? Executive dysfunction versus burnout versus laziness. Let's get scientific for a moment, because understanding the difference between these three things will change how you see yourself. Laziness is a moral judgment. It implies choice. It implies you could do better if you just cared more. And as we've established, this describes almost nobody. Executive dysfunction is a neurological issue. It's when the part of your brain responsible for planning, organizing, and initiating tasks, your prefrontal cortex, isn't communicating properly with the rest of your brain. This happens with ADHD, autism, depression, anxiety, and a dozen other conditions. But it also happens to completely neurotypical people who are under chronic stress. When your brain is overwhelmed, it shuts down the executive function center to conserve energy. You're not choosing to be stuck. Your brain is literally unable to send the "start doing the thing" signal. Burnout is what happens when you've been running on empty for so long that your entire system, mind, body, emotions, crashes. It's not just tiredness, it's a depletion so deep that even things you used to love feel like obligations. Burnout doesn't happen because you're weak. It happens because you've been strong for too long without rest. Now here's the part nobody tells you. These three things can overlap. You can have executive dysfunction and burnout at the same time. You can be neurotypical and still experience executive dysfunction because of stress. And all of it gets mislabeled as laziness by people who don't understand what's actually happening. the truth you need to hear. So here's where we are right now, at the end of this first chapter. You are not lazy. Your body is not broken. Your brain is not defective. What you're experiencing is a normal biological response to an abnormal amount of pressure. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do: protect you. The problem isn't you. The problem is that nobody taught you how to recognize when you're in functional freeze. Nobody taught you the difference between physical tiredness and neurological exhaustion. Nobody taught you that pushing through doesn't work when your system is already overloaded. And most importantly, nobody taught you that rest, real rest, isn't the same thing as sleep. In a short time, we're going to dismantle every lie you've been told about tiredness, motivation, and productivity. We're going to look at the science of why your body shuts down. We're going to identify the hidden drains on your energy that you didn't even know existed. And then we're going to rebuild. Not with some intense overhaul that requires willpower you don't have, but with small, gentle, sustainable changes that work with your nervous system instead of against it. But first, you have to let go of the word lazy. You have to stop treating yourself like a moral failure. You have to start treating yourself like someone who's been carrying an invisible weight for far too long. Because that's what you are. And today, we start putting that weight down. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about something that will change the way you think about tiredness forever: the biological battery. Why sleeping 10 hours doesn't fix the problem, why you can wake up exhausted even after a full night's rest, and why your body is keeping score in ways you never realized. But for now, just sit with this. You're not lazy, you're tired, and there's a difference. Let me ask you something that might sound strange. Have you ever slept for 10 hours and woken up more tired than when you went to bed? Not just groggy, not just needing coffee, but deeply, existentially exhausted, like someone reached into your chest and scooped out whatever makes you feel alive. You tell yourself it doesn't make sense. Sleep is supposed to fix tiredness, right? That's the deal. You close your eyes, 8 hours pass, you wake up recharged. Except that's not what's happening. You're doing everything right, going to bed early, staying hydrated, avoiding screens before bed, and yet every morning feels like you're trying to start a car with a dead battery. So you start Googling. Maybe it's your thyroid, maybe it's anemia, maybe it's chronic fatigue syndrome. You go to the doctor, they run tests, everything comes back normal. And then you're left with the most frustrating answer of all. There's nothing physically wrong with you. But here's what nobody tells you. They're looking at the wrong kind of tired. The two types of tired. Your body has two completely different energy systems, and most people don't know the difference between them. The first is physical tiredness. This is what happens when you run a marathon, move furniture all day, or stay up for 24 hours straight. Your muscles are depleted. Your body needs fuel and rest. Sleep fixes this. A good meal fixes this. Time fixes this. The second is neurological exhaustion. This is what happens when your nervous system has been running in survival mode for so long that it's drained your mental and emotional reserves. Sleep doesn't fix this. In fact, you can sleep for 12 hours and wake up with this type of tiredness completely untouched. Why? Because sleep restores your body, but it doesn't restore your nervous system. And that's the battery nobody's talking about. Your nervous system is keeping score. Think of your nervous system like a phone battery. Throughout the day, everything you do drains it. But here's the thing, not all activities drain it equally. A physically demanding task like going to the gym, that drains your body battery, but it can actually charge your nervous system battery if you enjoy it. The endorphins, the sense of accomplishment, those are deposits. But a mentally demanding task that you hate, that drains both batteries, the physical effort and the emotional resistance, double the cost. A conversation where you have to pretend to be okay when you're not, that's one of the most expensive transactions your nervous system makes. Masking, suppressing, performing, these drain you faster than running a 5K. And here's the part that breaks people. Your nervous system doesn't reset overnight. It keeps a cumulative score. Let me explain something that changed my entire understanding of exhaustion. When you experience stress, your body goes through a biological cycle. It's supposed to work like this. Stressor appears, a deadline, a conflict, a threat. Stress hormones flood your system, cortisol, adrenaline. You take action, fight, flight, or freeze. The action completes the cycle. Your body returns to baseline. That last step, the completion, is crucial. It's how your nervous system knows the danger has passed. It's how it knows to stop producing stress hormones and return to rest mode. But here's the problem with modern life. We almost never complete the cycle. Your boss sends a passive-aggressive email. Stress hormones spike, but you can't fight your boss. You can't run away from your job. So the stress just sits there, unresolved, circulating in your bloodstream. You have a fight with your partner. Stress hormones spike. You suppress your anger because you don't want to escalate. The cycle doesn't complete. The stress stays in your body. You get bad news. Stress hormones spike. You're told to stay positive and don't worry about it. So you smile and nod while your nervous system screams that the threat is still there. Day after day, week after week, year after year, your body accumulates unfinished stress cycles, and every single one of them is draining your battery even while you sleep. Why sleep doesn't fix it. This is the part that frustrates people the most. You're doing everything right. You're sleeping 8, 9, 10 hours. You're eating well. You're not staying up doom scrolling until 3 a.m., and yet you wake up exhausted. Here's why. Sleep is designed to repair your body. It heals muscles, consolidates memories, regulates hormones. It's incredibly powerful for physical restoration. But sleep does not discharge the stress that's trapped in your nervous system. Think of it like this. If you ran a marathon, sleep would repair your legs. But if you spent all day suppressing anxiety, holding back tears, pretending to be fine, sleep won't touch that. That stress is still sitting in your nervous system, waiting to be processed. And if you go to sleep with a nervous system full of unresolved stress, you wake up with a nervous system full of unresolved stress, plus whatever new stress today is going to bring. No wonder you're exhausted. The invisible weight you're carrying. Let me tell you what's probably happening to you right now, in this very moment. You're listening to this audiobook, and part of your brain is going, okay, this makes sense, but what do I do about it? Another part is worried about the things you should be doing instead of listening to this. Another part is planning dinner. Another part is replaying an awkward interaction from yesterday. And beneath all of that, there's a baseline hum of stress that's so constant you don't even notice it anymore. It's like the sound of a refrigerator running. You only hear it when it stops. That hum is your nervous system on high alert. It's been there so long you think it's normal. You think everyone feels like this. They don't. What you're experiencing is called allostatic load. It's the cumulative burden of chronic stress. It's not one big traumatic event. It's 1,000 small stressors that your body never got permission to release. Every time you bit your tongue instead of speaking your truth, smiled when you wanted to scream, pushed through when your body begged for rest, said, "I'm fine," when you absolutely weren't, ignored your gut feeling to keep the peace. You added weight to your nervous system. And now you're carrying years of unprocessed emotion disguised as tiredness. The chemistry of exhaustion. Let's get into the biology for a moment, because understanding what's happening in your body takes away the mystery, and mystery is where shame lives. When you're under chronic stress, your body produces cortisol. Cortisol is supposed to be a short-term hormone. It gives you energy to deal with immediate threats. But when stress is constant, cortisol is constant. High cortisol disrupts your sleep architecture. You might sleep for 10 hours, but you never drop into deep restorative sleep. Your brain stays in light sleep, vigilant, waiting for danger. High cortisol also disrupts your mitochondria, the powerhouses of your cells. Even if you're eating well, your cells can't efficiently convert food into energy, so you feel tired even when you're doing everything right. And here's the cruel irony. Cortisol also interferes with your body's ability to produce serotonin and dopamine, the neurochemicals that make you feel motivated and happy. So not only are you exhausted, but you also can't access the internal rewards that usually motivate you to push through. You're not weak. Your biochemistry is working against you. Rest is not sleep. So if sleep doesn't fix neurological exhaustion, what does? Rest. Real rest. And here's the part that's going to sound strange. Rest is not the same thing as doing nothing. Lying in bed scrolling your phone, that's not rest. Watching Netflix for 5 hours, not rest. Sleeping in on weekends, that helps your body, but it doesn't necessarily restore your nervous system. Real rest is anything that completes a stress cycle. Anything that tells your nervous system the threat has passed, you're safe now, you can stop being on high alert. For some people, it's vigorous exercise, not because exercise is relaxing, but because it completes the fight or flight response your body never got to finish. For others, it's crying, a deep, ugly, cathartic cry that releases all the emotion you've been holding back. For others, it's creative expression, writing, painting, singing, anything that lets the trapped energy move through you. And for others still, it's connection. Real, vulnerable, authentic connection where you don't have to perform or pretend. Rest is not passive. Rest is active release. The question you should be asking. Here's the question that changes everything. Instead of asking, why am I so tired? Start asking, what is my body tired from? Because if you're tired from physical exertion, sleep will fix it. But if you're tired from emotional suppression, from chronic stress, from living a life that demands you betray yourself every single day, sleep won't touch it. You can sleep for 1,000 hours and still wake up exhausted if you're trying to rest your body when it's your nervous system that needs tending. And that's what we're going to do in this audiobook. We're going to identify exactly what's draining your battery. Not just the obvious things, but the invisible ones, the sneaky ones, the ones you've been taught to ignore. The truth of your exhaustion. Let me tell you something you probably don't want to hear, but desperately need to hear. Your exhaustion is not a weakness, it's data. Your body is not betraying you, it's trying to protect you. It's screaming at you to pay attention to something you've been ignoring for too long. Maybe it's a job that's slowly killing you. Maybe it's a relationship where you can't be yourself. Maybe it's a version of success that requires you to abandon everything that makes you feel alive. Your exhaustion is not the problem. Your exhaustion is the alarm bell. And right now, we're learning to listen. Chapter 3. The Dopamine Trap. Here's a question that haunts every exhausted person on the planet. Why can you scroll TikTok for 3 hours straight, but you can't answer a single email? Why can you binge an entire Netflix series in one sitting, but folding laundry feels like climbing Everest? Why can you spend 45 minutes researching the perfect water bottle on Amazon, but making an actual phone call makes you want to cry? If you're truly exhausted, if your battery is really that dead, shouldn't everything be equally impossible? But that's not what's happening. Your exhaustion is selective, weirdly, maddeningly selective. And this is the part where the guilt gets really bad. Because if you can do some things, then obviously you're just choosing not to do the other things, right? Obviously you're just being lazy. Wrong. What you're experiencing is not laziness. It's a neurological trap that's so common, so invisible, and so perfectly designed by modern technology that most people don't even realize they're stuck in it. Welcome to the dopamine trap, the chemical that runs your life. Let's talk about dopamine, not the Instagram wellness version where dopamine is just the happy chemical, the real version, the one that controls whether you can actually function as a human being. Dopamine is not about happiness, it's about motivation. It's the neurochemical that says, this is worth doing. This action will lead to a reward. Let's go. Every time you do something and your brain releases dopamine, it's essentially creating a little pathway that says, remember this, do this again. Dopamine is how your brain learns what to care about. And here's the thing about dopamine, it's not actually released when you get the reward. It's released in anticipation of the reward. That moment right before you eat the cookie, check your phone, open the package. That's the dopamine hit. The actual cookie is almost irrelevant. Your brain is constantly running a background calculation. How much effort does this require? How much dopamine will I get in return? Is it worth it? And when the dopamine is high and the effort is low, your brain says, yes, do this right now. When the dopamine is low and the effort is high, your brain says, absolutely not. This is not worth the energy. That's why you can scroll endlessly, but can't reply to a text. The scroll gives you a tiny dopamine hit every 3 seconds. The text requires emotional energy with no guaranteed reward. Your brain isn't being lazy, it's being efficient, terrifyingly, addictively efficient. Cheap dopamine versus earned dopamine. Not all dopamine is created equal, and this is where modern life has absolutely destroyed us. Earned dopamine is what you get from doing something difficult that genuinely matters to you. Finishing a project, having a deep conversation, creating something, solving a real problem. The effort is high, but the dopamine is rich, complex, and satisfying. It actually fills your tank. Cheap dopamine is what you get from low-effort, high-frequency stimulation, social media, junk food, online shopping, porn, gambling, video games designed by neuroscientists whose entire job is to keep you playing. The effort is zero, but the dopamine is quick, shallow, and empty. It drains your tank while pretending to fill it. Here's the problem. Your brain can't tell the difference between the two, not immediately. Dopamine is dopamine. So when you're exhausted and your brain is desperately searching for any source of motivation, it reaches for the cheapest, easiest hit it can find. You open TikTok, scroll, tiny hit, scroll, tiny hit, scroll. 3 hours later, you've had hundreds of microdoses of dopamine. Your brain feels stimulated, but your tank is emptier than when you started. Because cheap dopamine doesn't build anything. It just borrows energy from tomorrow. The overstimulation paradox. Here's the cruel irony. The more overstimulated you are, the more exhausted you feel. And the more exhausted you feel, the more you reach for overstimulation to cope. Let me explain what's happening in your brain. When you're constantly exposed to high dopamine, low-effort activities, your brain starts to recalibrate what normal dopamine levels feel like. It's called dopamine baseline adjustment. If you're getting 50 tiny dopamine hits an hour from your phone, your brain starts to expect that. It gets used to it, and suddenly anything that produces less dopamine than scrolling feels boring, feels pointless, feels like it's not worth the effort. Washing dishes? That's maybe one small dopamine hit when you're done. Maybe. Your brain looks at that equation and says, absolutely not. That's a terrible deal. So you don't wash the dishes. You go back to your phone. You get your 50 micro hits. You feel stimulated, but not satisfied. Buzzing, but not alive. And underneath all that stimulation, you're still exhausted, because stimulation is not the same as rest. In fact, it's the opposite. Your brain is both bored and overstimulated at the same time. This is going to sound contradictory, but stay with me. Your brain is simultaneously starving for stimulation and drowning in it. When you're scrolling, watching, consuming, your brain is processing an enormous amount of information. Faces, colors, sounds, text, emotions, stories. It's working incredibly hard. That's the overstimulation. But none of it is meaningful. None of it requires you to engage deeply, to think critically, to create something, to connect authentically. Your brain is busy, but it's not nourished. That's the boredom. It's like eating an entire bag of chips. You're full, but you're still hungry, because chips don't have any actual nutrition. They just fill space. That's what cheap dopamine does. It fills your brain with empty calories while your deeper needs go unmet. And the worst part? The more overstimulated you become, the less capable you are of engaging with things that actually matter, because anything that requires patience, focus, or delayed gratification feels impossible when your brain is expecting a hit every 3 seconds. The attention economy is not your friend. Let me be very clear about something. This is not your fault. You are not weak, you are not undisciplined, you are not failing at self-control. You are up against a trillion-dollar industry that has spent decades perfecting the science of hijacking your dopamine system. Every app on your phone has been optimized by some of the smartest people on the planet to be as addictive as humanly possible. The infinite scroll, the autoplay, the notifications, the one more episode button, the algorithm that learns exactly what keeps you watching. These are not accidents. They are weapons-grade behavioral psychology designed to keep you engaged, which is a corporate euphemism for addicted. And when you're exhausted, when your willpower is already at 0, you don't stand a chance. So let's stop pretending this is a personal failing. You're not losing a fair fight. You're fighting an opponent that's cheating. The dopamine drought. Here's what happens when you've been running on cheap dopamine for too long. Your brain's dopamine receptors start to down-regulate. Basically, your brain creates fewer receptors because it's being flooded with too much dopamine too often. It's trying to protect itself from overstimulation. But now you need more and more dopamine to feel the same effect. The same scroll that used to give you a little buzz now does nothing. So you scroll faster, you switch apps, you seek out more extreme content. And normal life, real life, becomes unbearably dull in comparison. A conversation with a friend? Too slow. A walk outside? Not stimulating enough. Cooking a meal? Where's the dopamine in that? This is called anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure from things that used to bring you joy. And it's not because you're depressed, though it can look like depression. It's because you've accidentally trained your brain to only respond to hyperstimulation. You're in a dopamine drought, and you don't even realize it. Why you can't just start. Let's go back to the original question. Why can you do some things but not others? When you try to do something difficult, something with no immediate dopamine reward, your brain runs its cost-benefit analysis. It looks at the effort required, it looks at the potential reward, and it calculates whether you have enough dopamine to even initiate the task. This is called task initiation, and it's one of the first things that breaks down when your dopamine system is dysregulated. You know you need to do the dishes, you can see them, you want them done, but when you try to stand up and walk to the sink, there's a wall, an invisible, infuriating wall that feels like resistance, like heaviness, like your body simply won't cooperate. That's not laziness. That's your brain saying, we don't have enough dopamine to fund this action right now. And the cruel part? The more you beat yourself up for not being able to start, the more cortisol you produce. And cortisol suppresses dopamine production. So the shame makes it even harder to move. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because your neurochemistry is working against you. The energy vampire you invited in. Here's the brutal truth. Every minute you spend on cheap dopamine is a minute you're stealing from activities that could actually restore you. You collapse on the couch after a long day. You're exhausted. You just want to zone out. So you open your phone. 2 hours disappear. You look up and you feel worse than when you started. Because scrolling doesn't rest your nervous system. It activates it. You're processing information, experiencing micro-emotions, making tiny decisions, all while sitting still. Your body is resting, but your brain is running a marathon. And then you go to bed, and you can't sleep, because your brain is still buzzing, still overstimulated, still expecting the next hit. So you scroll some more, just until you're tired enough to sleep. Except you don't get tired, you get wired. And the next morning, you wake up even more exhausted than before. The dopamine trap isn't just stealing your time, it's stealing your rest. It's stealing your ability to do the things that actually matter. It's stealing your life 3 seconds at a time. The reset button exists. Here's the good news. Your dopamine system can heal. Your brain can recalibrate. You can retrain yourself to find satisfaction in real things again. But you can't do it by willpower alone, because willpower runs on dopamine, and your dopamine system is already depleted. That's why every attempt to just stop has failed. You can't fight a neurochemical problem with moral effort. What you need is a strategy that works with your brain, not against it. A way to gently, gradually shift your dopamine baseline back to something sustainable, something real. And that's what we're going to build. Not today, we're still in the diagnosis phase, but soon. For now, I just need you to understand this. The fact that you can do some things but not others doesn't mean you're lazy. It means your dopamine system is dysregulated, and dysregulation can be fixed. The question you're really asking when you say, "Why can't I just do the thing?" is what you're really asking is, "Why doesn't my brain think this is worth doing?" And the answer is because your brain has been trained to value the wrong things. Not by you, by a system that profits from your attention, by a culture that glorifies productivity but vilifies rest, by 1,000 tiny choices that made sense in the moment but accumulated into a pattern you didn't choose. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was trained to do. But you can train it differently. You can teach your brain to crave depth instead of distraction, connection instead of consumption, earned dopamine instead of cheap dopamine. It's not easy, it's not fast, but it's possible. And it starts with understanding what you're actually up against. Chapter 4. The Perfectionism Paralysis. Let me tell you about the most exhausting people I've ever met. They're not the lazy ones. They're not the ones who don't care. They're the high achievers, the ones with spotless resumes, the ones who've never missed a deadline, never turned in sloppy work, never let anyone down. They're the ones who look like they have it all together, and they're absolutely falling apart inside. If you're one of these people, and if you're listening to this audiobook, there's a good chance you are, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what it's like to sit in front of a blank page for 3 hours because you can't start until you know it's going to be perfect. You know what it's like to cancel plans because you haven't finished a project that no one else even knows you're working on. You know what it's like to lie awake at night, replaying every conversation, every email, every decision, looking for the mistake you might have made. You know what it's like to be praised for your work and feel nothing but relief that you didn't get caught being mediocre this time. This is perfectionism, and it's not a strength. It's not high standards. It's not attention to detail. It's one of the most energy-expensive ways to live, and it's slowly killing you. The all-or-nothing mind. Here's how perfectionism works in your brain. You look at a task. Your brain immediately calculates what perfect would look like. Not good, not adequate, perfect, the best possible version of this thing that could ever exist. Then your brain looks at your current capacity, your energy, your time, your resources, and runs the numbers. Can we do this perfectly right now? And if the answer is anything other than a confident yes, your brain shuts down. It says, if we can't do it perfectly, we're not doing it at all. This is called all-or-nothing thinking, and it's the reason you can't start. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't care, but because your brain has been trained to believe that anything less than perfect is worthless. So if you can't guarantee perfection, you can't even take the first step. You'd rather do nothing than do something imperfect, because doing nothing feels safer than risking failure. But here's what your brain doesn't tell you. Doing nothing is still a choice, and it's the choice that's draining your battery the fastest. The myth of high standards. People will tell you that perfectionism is just having high standards, that it's a good thing, that it's what separates successful people from mediocre ones. That's a lie. High standards mean you aim for excellence and celebrate when you achieve it. Perfectionism means you aim for impossible and feel like a failure when you only achieve excellent. High standards mean you can recognize when something is good enough. Perfectionism means nothing is ever good enough. High standards motivate you. Perfectionism paralyzes you. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're writing an email. Someone with high standards writes a clear, thoughtful email, reads it once to check for typos, and sends it. 5 minutes, done. Someone with perfectionism writes the email, rereads it, changes the wording, rereads it again, questions whether the tone is right, edits it again, considers whether they should add more context, rewrites the entire thing, reads it out loud, changes it again, and then either finally sends it 30 minutes later or gives up and doesn't send it at all because they can't get it perfect. That's not high standards, that's torture. The physical toll of never being good enough. Here's what perfectionism does to your body. Chronic perfectionism keeps your nervous system in a constant state of threat, because to your brain, making a mistake is a threat, being judged is a threat, not meeting your own standards is a threat. So your body produces cortisol constantly. Your heart rate stays elevated, your muscles stay tense, your sleep stays disrupted. And over time, this chronic activation wears down your system. Your immune system weakens, your digestion suffers, your energy crashes. People with perfectionistic tendencies are significantly more likely to experience burnout, anxiety disorders, depression, insomnia, and chronic pain. Not because they're working harder than everyone else, though they often are, but because the internal pressure they put on themselves is literally destroying their bodies from the inside out. You're not tired because you're doing too much. You're tired because the standard you're holding yourself to is impossible, and your body is screaming at you to stop. The B- revolution. Let me introduce you to a concept that might change your life. B- work. Not because B- is the goal, but because B- is good enough. And right now, you need to learn what good enough feels like. Here's the truth. Most of the things you're perfecting don't need to be perfect. Most of the emails you agonize over could be half as long and twice as effective. Most of the projects you spend weeks on could be done in days and no one would notice the difference. In fact, research shows that in most contexts, there's a point of diminishing returns where additional effort produces almost no improvement in outcomes. You're spending 80% of your energy to improve something by 5%. That's not excellence, that's waste. B- work means writing the email and sending it without rereading it 5 times. Submitting the project when it's good, not when it's flawless. Letting the dishes sit in the sink overnight because you're too tired, and that's okay. Showing up to the meeting without having prepared a perfect presentation. Wearing clothes that are clean but not perfectly coordinated. Cooking a meal that's nutritious but not Instagram-worthy. B- work doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about the right things. It means you're spending your energy on what actually matters instead of burning it all on things that don't. The permission you're waiting for. Here's what I need you to hear. You don't need to earn the right to do imperfect work. You don't need to prove that you're too tired or too busy or too overwhelmed. You have permission right now, today, to be good enough instead of perfect. You have permission to send the email with a typo, to submit the project that's 90% instead of 100%, to show up as you are instead of as the idealized version you think you should be. Not because you're giving up, not because you're lazy, but because perfectionism is not sustainable, and you're trying to build a life that is. The world doesn't need your perfect work. The world needs your real work, the work you can actually produce without destroying yourself in the process. What perfectionism is stealing from you? Let's be honest about what this is costing you. Perfectionism is stealing your time. All those hours spent agonizing over details that no one else will notice. Perfectionism is stealing your joy. You can't celebrate your achievements because you're too busy finding the flaws. Perfectionism is stealing your relationships. You cancel plans because you're not done working. You're irritable because you're exhausted. You can't be present because you're replaying your mistakes. Perfectionism is stealing your health. The chronic stress, the poor sleep, the anxiety, the physical tension. And most tragically, perfectionism is stealing your life because you're so busy trying to be perfect that you're not actually living. You're surviving, you're performing, you're achieving, but you're not living. the choice you have to make. Here's the hard truth. Perfectionism will not relax its grip on you just because you understand it better now. It's not going to suddenly feel okay to do imperfect work. You're going to have to choose it actively, repeatedly, even when every part of you is screaming that it's not good enough. You're going to have to practice doing things badly, intentionally, just to prove to yourself that the world doesn't end when you're not perfect. You're going to have to sit with the discomfort of releasing work that you know could be better, and you're going to have to notice that nothing terrible happens. This is not going to be easy. Perfectionism is a deeply ingrained pattern. It's probably been protecting you for years. Your brain isn't going to let go of it without a fight. But here's what I can promise you. On the other side of perfectionism is a level of freedom and energy you've forgotten exists. On the other side of perfectionism, you get to rest, you get to play, you get to create without fear, you get to exist without constantly judging yourself. And that's worth fighting for. Chapter 5. Emotional Heavy Lifting. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You walk into a room and immediately sense the tension. Your partner is upset about something, but they say they're fine. Your brain instantly goes into fix-it mode. What did I do? What do they need? How do I make this better? Or maybe it's your friend venting about their problems for the third time this week. You're exhausted, you have your own issues, but you can't say that. So you listen, you validate, you give advice, you absorb their stress like a sponge. And when the conversation ends, you feel like you just ran a marathon. Or perhaps it's work. Your boss is in a bad mood, so you adjust your entire energy to compensate. You become extra cheerful, extra helpful, extra careful not to trigger them. You manage their emotions so well that they don't even realize you're doing it. And at the end of the day, you're absolutely destroyed. But you didn't do anything physically demanding. You just existed around other people. This is emotional labor. And it's one of the most exhausting, invisible, underestimated energy drains that exists. The labor no one sees. Emotional labor is the work of managing feelings, yours and everyone else's, to maintain social harmony and meet other people's needs. It's reading the room, anticipating needs, smoothing over conflicts, keeping everyone comfortable, managing other people's reactions, suppressing your own feelings so others don't have to deal with them. And here's the thing, this is real work. It requires cognitive energy, emotional regulation, constant vigilance, and social intelligence. It's just as taxing as physical labor, sometimes more so. But nobody sees it, nobody counts it, nobody thanks you for it. In fact, if you're doing it well, people don't even realize you're doing it at all. They just think you're naturally easy to be around, naturally considerate, naturally thoughtful. But there's nothing natural about it. You're working, constantly, and it's draining your battery every single second. The physical cost of pretending. Let me tell you what happens in your body when you're doing emotional labor. You're sitting across from someone who's upset. Every part of you wants to shut down, to escape, to say, I can't do this right now. But you don't. You smile, you nod, you stay engaged. To do this, your brain has to override your natural stress response. It has to suppress the signals your body is sending that say, this is too much. It has to activate your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for self-control, to keep your authentic reactions in check. This process consumes glucose. It activates your sympathetic nervous system. It floods your body with cortisol. It's not just mentally exhausting, it's metabolically expensive. Studies have shown that emotional suppression, pretending you're fine when you're not, burns through your energy reserves faster than many forms of physical activity. It literally costs calories to fake being okay. And the kicker? Most people do this for hours every single day. At work, you can't show frustration. At home, you have to be on for your family. With friends, you can't always be the one with problems. In public, you have to maintain a pleasant demeanor. So you spend your entire day suppressing, managing, performing, and then you wonder why you're so tired when all you did was just talk to people. Masking, the invisible performance. If you're neurodivergent, ADHD, autistic, or otherwise wired differently, you already know about masking. But here's the truth. Everyone masks to some degree, and it's destroying us. Masking is when you hide your true self to fit in, to be acceptable, to not make waves. It's laughing at jokes you don't find funny, pretending to be interested in conversations that bore you, modulating your voice, your body language, your energy to match what the situation demands. It's constantly monitoring yourself. Am I being too much? Too loud? Too quiet? Too weird? Too intense? Am I making people uncomfortable? For neurodivergent folks, this is survival. If you don't mask, you get rejected, bullied, excluded. So you learn to mirror, to mimic, to perform normal so convincingly that people never suspect how hard you're working just to exist in their space. But neurotypical people mask too. Women mask to be likable, men mask to be strong, people of color mask to be non-threatening, queer people mask to be acceptable. We're all performing versions of ourselves that we think other people need us to be, and the performance never ends. The invisible tax on marginalized people. Let's be very clear about something. Emotional labor is not distributed equally. Women do more of it than men. People of color do more of it than white people. LGBTQ people do more of it than straight, cisgendered people. Disabled people do more of it than able-bodied people. If you're in a marginalized group, you don't just manage your own emotions, you manage other people's discomfort with your existence. You make yourself smaller so others feel bigger. You stay calm when people say ignorant things because getting angry would make you difficult. You educate people who should educate themselves because if you don't, you are not giving them a chance. You laugh off microaggressions, you code switch, you perform gratitude for the bare minimum. You constantly signal that you're one of the good ones. And all of this is on top of the regular emotional labor everyone does. So when people ask, "Why are you so tired? You didn't even do anything today," what they don't understand is that simply existing in a world that wasn't designed for you is exhausting work. The people who drain you. Let's talk about energy vampires, not in a mystical sense, but in a very real, practical sense. There are people in your life who drain your battery faster than others. Not because they're bad people, but because the dynamic you have with them requires constant emotional labor. Maybe it's the friend who only calls when they need something. The conversation is never reciprocal. You listen to their problems for hours, but when you try to share yours, they change the subject or offer surface-level advice and move on. Or maybe it's your family member who's always in crisis. Their life is chaos, and somehow you're always the one picking up the pieces. You can't say no because family is family, so you just keep showing up, keep giving, keep pouring from your own empty cup. Maybe it's the coworker who never reads the room. They trauma dump in the break room, they vent about their personal life during meetings, and you're the one stuck nodding along, managing their feelings because everyone else has learned to avoid them. Or maybe it's the person who's not dramatic or demanding, they're just to recover. These aren't bad people, but the relationship is unbalanced, and that imbalance is costing you. The weight of other people's feelings. Here's something that exhausted people often don't realize. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. Read that again. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. If someone is upset, that's their feeling to feel. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to absorb it. You don't have to make yourself smaller or brighter or different so they can feel better. If someone is uncomfortable with your boundary, that's their discomfort to sit with. You don't have to justify yourself. You don't have to over-explain. You don't have to apologize for having needs. If someone is disappointed in you, that's their disappointment to process. You don't have to change who you are or what you need to maintain their approval. But if you're someone who does a lot of emotional labor, this idea probably feels impossible, dangerous even, because you've learned that other people's feelings are your responsibility, that keeping the peace is your job, that if someone is upset, it's on you to fix it. But here's the truth. That belief is killing you. Every time you take responsibility for someone else's emotional state, you're using energy you don't have. Every time you suppress your own needs to meet someone else's, you're betraying yourself, and your body keeps score. The leaks you don't see. Let me ask you a question. Where are you leaking energy? Not the obvious drains, not work or caregiving or chores, the invisible ones. Maybe it's the group chat that you have to monitor constantly, because if you don't respond quickly enough, someone will think you're mad at them. Maybe it's the social media performance, posting the right things, liking the right posts, maintaining the image of someone who has it together. Maybe it's the Sunday dinners with family, where you have to bite your tongue, smile through comments that hurt, pretend you're not bothered by dynamics that have been toxic for decades. Maybe it's the relationship where you're always the one checking in, the one who remembers birthdays, the one who plans everything, the one who makes sure everyone feels included. Maybe it's the job where you're not just doing your work, you're managing your boss's moods, mediating conflicts between coworkers, being the glue that holds the team together. These are your leaks, the places where energy is flowing out of you constantly, invisibly, unsustainably. And until you identify them, you can't plug them. The cost of being low maintenance. Here's a lie you might have internalized. Being low maintenance is a virtue. Not asking for help, not being too much, not having needs, not making waves, being the easy one, the chill one, the one who never complains. But low maintenance is just another word for self-abandonment. When you pride yourself on being low maintenance, what you're really saying is, I've learned to betray my own needs so other people don't have to adjust to me. You don't speak up when something bothers you because you don't want to be difficult. You don't ask for what you need because you don't want to be demanding. You don't set boundaries because you don't want to be mean. So you suffer in silence. You carry the weight. You make yourself smaller and smaller until you almost disappear. And the truly cruel part is people don't even notice. They just think you're naturally easygoing, naturally unbothered. They don't see the work you're doing to make their lives more comfortable. Being low maintenance doesn't make you virtuous, it makes you invisible, and it's exhausting. The right to be inconvenient. Here's what I want you to understand. You have the right to be inconvenient. You have the right to have needs, to set boundaries, to say no, to be upset, to not manage other people's reactions to your truth. You have the right to be tired and not hide it, to be sad and not perform happiness, to be angry and not soften it so others feel comfortable. You have the right to exist without constantly calculating how your existence affects everyone else. You have the right to take up space. This doesn't mean being cruel. It doesn't mean being selfish. It doesn't mean disregarding other people's feelings entirely. It means you stop treating your own needs as optional. It means you stop carrying emotional labor that isn't yours to carry. It means you let other people feel their feelings without making it your job to fix them. What happens when you stop? Here's what people don't tell you about stopping emotional labor. It feels terrible at first. When you stop managing everyone's emotions, people notice. They might get upset. They might call you selfish. They might accuse you of changing or not caring anymore. Because you were providing a service they didn't even realize they were receiving. And now that service has stopped, and they can feel the absence. But here's the thing. Their discomfort is evidence that you were doing too much for too long. The people who genuinely care about you will adjust. They'll learn to manage their own emotions. They'll learn to show up for you the way you've been showing up for them. And the people who can't adjust, the people who need you to keep performing emotional labor to stay in relationship with you, those relationships were never sustainable. They were just using you. Identifying your emotional labor. Before we move forward, I want you to do something. I want you to make a list. Not out loud, not written down if you don't want to, just mentally. Who are the people in your life where you feel lighter after seeing them? Who are the people where you feel heavier? Where do you feel like you can be yourself? Where do you have to put on a face? Where can you be yourself? Where are you saying yes when you mean no? Where are you suppressing your truth to keep the peace? These are your emotional hotspots. These are where your energy is leaking. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Chapter 6. The Should List. Quick question. How much of your life is actually yours? Not in a philosophical sense, in a practical day-to-day sense. How many of the things you do every day are things you genuinely want to do? And how many are things you think you should do? Should go to the gym, should eat healthier, should call your parents more, should be more social, should have a better morning routine, should be more productive, should keep a cleaner house, should read more books, should spend less time on your phone, should be further along in your career by now. Should. And here's the brutal truth. Every single should on your list is draining your battery. Because should is not motivation, it's obligation dressed up as personal choice. And obligation without genuine desire is one of the fastest paths to exhaustion. External expectations versus internal desires. Let me explain the difference between these two types of motivation. Internal desire is when you do something because you genuinely want to, because it aligns with your values, because it brings you joy, satisfaction, meaning, or fulfillment. When you act from internal desire, you might get tired, but you don't get depleted. The action itself can actually restore you, even if it's hard work. External expectation is when you do something because you think you're supposed to, because society says so, because your family expects it, because you'll be judged if you don't, because everyone else is doing it and you don't want to be left behind. When you act from external expectation, every action drains you. Even small tasks feel heavy because you're fighting your own resistance the entire time. And here's the problem. Most people have no idea which is which. They've internalized external expectations so deeply that they genuinely believe they want the things they think they should want. You think you want to wake up at 5 a.m. and have a perfect morning routine, but do you? Or do you think you should because every productivity guru says that's what successful people do? You think you want a spotless house, but do you? Or do you think you should because that's what a responsible adult does? You think you want to be constantly improving yourself, but do you? Or do you think you should because standing still feels like falling behind? The tyranny of normal. Society has this idea of what a normal life looks like, what normal people do, how normal people spend their time. Normal people have a consistent sleep schedule, normal people exercise regularly, normal people have active social lives, normal people are ambitious, normal people have clean homes, normal people don't waste time, normal people are always working towards something. And if you're not doing these things, if you're not performing normal correctly, you feel broken, lazy, behind. But here's what nobody tells you. Normal is a construct. It's not real. It's not universal. It's just a collection of expectations that someone, somewhere, decided were the right way to live. And those expectations change depending on who's defining them. Your parents' version of normal is different from your peers' version. Your culture's version of normal is different from another culture's version. The internet's version of normal is completely detached from reality. So when you feel like you're failing at being normal, what you're actually failing at is meeting an impossible, contradictory, constantly shifting standard that was never designed with your actual life, your actual needs, your actual circumstances in mind. You're not failing. The standard is nonsense. The hidden cost of living someone else's life. Here's the thing about shoulds. They accumulate, they pile up. And eventually, you wake up one day and realize you're living a life that looks successful on paper, but feels hollow in reality. You have the job you're supposed to want, the relationship structure you're supposed to have, the lifestyle you're supposed to pursue, the goals you're supposed to care about. And you're absolutely miserable. Or if not miserable, then numb, disconnected, going through the motions. Because you've spent so long doing what you should do that you've lost touch with what you actually want. You've buried your authentic desires so deep beneath the weight of expectations that you can't even access them anymore. And the exhaustion you feel, that's not just physical tiredness, that's existential exhaustion. It's the tiredness that comes from living out of alignment with yourself. You can sleep for 12 hours and still wake up tired when you're living a life that isn't yours. The audit. What's actually yours? Let's do something right now. A quick inventory. I want you to think about your typical day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. Walk through your activities, and for each one, ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to or because I think I should? Your morning routine, want or should? Your job, want or should? The way you spend your evenings, want or should? The people you see, want or should? The hobbies you pursue or don't pursue, want or should? The standards you hold yourself to, want or should? Be brutally honest, because here's what you'll probably discover. A shocking amount of your life is should, and that's why you're so tired. The things you're doing out of guilt. Let's talk about guilt for a moment, because guilt is often the emotion powering your shoulds. You should visit your family more, even though every visit leaves you drained for days, but if you don't, you feel guilty. You should say yes to social invitations, even though you desperately need alone time, but if you don't, you feel guilty. You should be more available to your friends, even though you're barely holding yourself together, but if you're not, you feel guilty. You should work harder, achieve more, do better, be better, and if you're not constantly striving, you feel guilty. Guilt is a useful emotion when it's telling you that you violated your own values. But most of the guilt you're carrying isn't about your values, it's about other people's expectations. And here's the truth, you cannot guilt yourself into sustainable action. Guilt might get you to do something once, twice, maybe even for a few weeks, but eventually guilt burns out. And what you're left with is resentment, exhaustion, and the knowledge that you spent your precious energy on something you didn't even want to do. The permission to disappoint people. This is the scariest part, the part where I tell you that you're going to have to disappoint people. When you stop doing things you think you should do, and start doing only what genuinely matters to you, people will notice. They'll be confused. They'll be hurt. They'll accuse you of being selfish, of changing, of not caring anymore. Your family might not understand why you're visiting less. Your friends might not understand why you're less available. Your colleagues might not understand why you're no longer going above and beyond. And you'll have to let them be disappointed. You'll have to sit with the discomfort of not meeting their expectations. You'll have to choose yourself, even when it feels selfish. Because here's the alternative. You keep living for everyone else. You keep doing what you should. You keep performing. You keep exhausting yourself. You keep betraying your own needs and desires. And eventually, you break completely. Or you start now. You disappoint some people. You set some boundaries, you reclaim your life, and you discover that the people who truly love you will adjust, and the ones who don't, they were only there for what you could give them anyway. The question that changes everything. Here's the question I want you to start asking yourself, not just today, but every single day. If no one was watching, if no one had an opinion, if there were no consequences or judgment, what would I actually want to do right now? Not what you should do, not what's productive, not what's responsible, not what looks good. What do you actually want? Maybe the answer is take a nap, watch trashy TV, eat cereal for dinner, cancel plans, quit the hobby you're forcing yourself to enjoy, drop the goal that never felt like yours, stop pretending you like something you don't. Maybe the answer is bigger, leave the job, end the relationship, move to a different city, pursue the thing everyone told you was impractical. Or maybe the answer is smaller, simpler, just stop. Stop pushing, stop improving, stop optimizing, just exist for a while without a plan. Whatever your answer is, it's valid, it's yours, and it matters more than any should ever could. Reclaiming your life. Here's what reclaiming your life looks like in practice. It's saying no without a detailed explanation. "I can't make it" is a complete sentence. It's dropping commitments that were never yours to begin with, quitting the committee, leaving the group chat, stopping the thing you started because you thought you should. It's letting your house be messy, letting your inbox pile up, letting other people be disappointed, letting yourself be imperfect, unproductive, unavailable. It's doing less, being less, caring less about what doesn't actually matter. It's radical prioritization, keeping only what genuinely serves you and releasing everything else. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it feels selfish. Yes, people will have opinions. But you know what's more uncomfortable? Spending your entire life exhausted because you're living according to someone else's blueprint. The life on the other side. I can't promise that living authentically will make you less tired immediately. In fact, it might make you more tired at first, because change is hard and disappointing people is exhausting. But I can promise this. On the other side of the should list is a life that actually feels like yours. A life where your energy goes toward things that matter to you, not things that look good to other people. On the other side is the ability to rest. Because when you're only doing what genuinely matters, you're not fighting yourself every step of the way. You're not spending half your energy on the action and the other half on resisting the action. On the other side is alignment, and alignment is the most sustainable source of energy that exists. Chapter 7. The 7 Types of Rest. Here's something that will change the way you think about rest forever. You know how sometimes you take a vacation and come back more exhausted than when you left? Or how you can have a completely free weekend and still feel depleted by Monday? Or how you can sleep for 10 hours and wake up feeling like you never rested at all? That's not because rest doesn't work. It's because you're resting the wrong thing. Most people think rest is just one thing: sleep. Close your eyes, turn off your brain, wake up recharged. Simple. But that's not how human beings work. We're not phones with a single battery. We have multiple energy systems, and each one needs its own specific type of rest. If your body is tired, sleep helps. But if your mind is tired, sleep won't touch it. If your emotions are depleted, sleep won't restore them. If your spirit is drained, sleep won't fill it back up. There are 7 types of rest. And until you figure out which ones you're actually lacking, you're going to keep trying to solve the wrong problem. Let's fix that. Type 1, physical rest. This is the obvious one, the one everyone knows about. Physical rest is what your body needs when your muscles are tired, your bones ache, or you've been physically active for too long. Physical rest comes in 2 forms. Passive physical rest is sleep and naps. It's letting your body repair itself while you're unconscious. Active physical rest is things like yoga, stretching, massage, gentle movement. It's helping your body release tension without demanding more from it. Here's how you know you need physical rest. Your body hurts. You're sore. Moving feels harder than it should. You're physically exhausted. And here's how you actually rest physically. You sleep. You take breaks. You stop pushing your body when it's asking for recovery. But here's the thing. Most exhausted people are not actually physically tired. Their bodies are fine. It's everything else that's depleted. So if you're sleeping 8 hours and still exhausted, your problem is not physical rest. It's one of the other 6. Type 2, mental rest. Mental rest is what you need when your brain won't stop, when you can't turn off the thoughts, when you're lying in bed at 2 a.m. mentally writing emails, replaying conversations, making lists, solving problems that don't need solving right now. Mental rest is not the same as sleep. You can sleep for 10 hours and still have 0 mental rest if your brain never gets a break from thinking. Here's how you know you need mental rest. You forget things constantly, even things you just heard. You have to reread sentences multiple times to understand them. You can't focus on anything for more than a few minutes. Your brain feels foggy, slow, overwhelmed. You lie down to rest, but your mind keeps racing. And here's how you actually get mental rest. Brain dumps. Take every thought in your head and put it somewhere external. Write it down. Voice memo it. Get it out of your brain so your brain can stop holding on to it. Scheduled worry time. Give yourself 10 minutes a day to worry about everything. Then close the worry session. Your brain needs permission to stop. Single tasking. Stop trying to do 17 things at once. Do one thing. Finish it. Move to the next. Your brain is exhausted from task switching. Silence. Actual, complete silence. No podcasts, no music, no audiobooks, no background noise. Just quiet. Your brain needs it. Mental rest is about giving your mind permission to stop working, and for most exhausted people, this is the rest they're missing most. Type 4, sensory rest. Sensory rest is what you need when you've been overstimulated, and in the modern world, you're almost always overstimulated. Think about it. You wake up to an alarm, notifications on your phone, bright lights, traffic noise, conversations, computer screens, fluorescent lighting at work, emails, Slack messages, Zoom calls where you have to stare at faces all day. Then you come home, to TV, to cooking sounds, to music, to more screens. Your senses are being bombarded constantly, and every single input requires your brain to process it. That processing costs energy. Here's how you know you need sensory rest. Your lights feel too bright. Your sounds feel too loud. You're irritable for no clear reason. You want to close your eyes even though you're not tired. Being around people feels overwhelming even when you like them. You fantasize about sitting in a dark, silent room. And here's how you actually get sensory rest. Reduce screen time, not as a moral judgment, but as a practical energy-saving measure. Screens are intense sensory input. Dim the lights, especially at night. Let your nervous system start winding down. Noise-canceling headphones, even if you're not listening to anything, just blocking the noise. Close your eyes for 1 minute, 5 minutes. Just let your visual system rest. Unfollow, mute, unsubscribe. Reduce the amount of information your brain has to process daily. Sensory rest is about turning down the volume on everything, giving your nervous system a break from constant stimulation. Type 4, creative rest. Creative rest is what you need when you've been consuming but not creating, when you've been problem-solving but not playing, when everything feels gray and flat and uninspiring. Creativity is not just for artists, it's a fundamental human need, and when it goes unfed, you feel it. You feel dull, uninspired, like something is missing but you can't name it. Here's how you know you need creative rest. Everything feels boring. You can't come up with new ideas. Problem-solving feels impossible. You've lost your sense of wonder. Beauty doesn't move you anymore. You feel stuck, uninspired, flat. And here's how you actually get creative rest. Experience beauty. Go somewhere beautiful. Look at art. Listen to music that moves you. Watch a sunset. Let beauty fill you back up. Create without purpose. Doodle. Write bad poetry. Make something with your hands. Dance in your kitchen. Sing in your car. Create for the joy of creating, not for the outcome. Get in nature. Nature is inherently creative. It reminds your brain what inspiration feels like. Stop consuming for a while. No input, just output, or just being. Let your own creativity surface instead of drowning it in other people's creativity. Type 5. Emotional rest. Emotional rest is what you need when you've been performing, managing, suppressing, when you've had to be on for too long, when you haven't been allowed to just feel what you feel without managing how it affects other people. This is the rest we talked about in the emotional labor chapter, and it's one of the most depleted tanks for most people. Here's how you know you need emotional rest. You feel numb or disconnected from your feelings. You're overly emotional about small things. You can't tell what you actually feel anymore. You're exhausted from pretending to be fine. You want to be alone, but being alone doesn't help. You feel like you're about to cry, but can't. And here's how you actually get emotional rest. Be authentic with someone safe. Find one person who can hold space for your real feelings without trying to fix them or make them go away. Stop performing, even just for an hour. Let your face relax. Let your voice be flat. Let yourself be exactly as okay or not okay as you actually are. Feel your feelings. Don't analyze them. Don't solve them. Don't judge them. Just feel them and let them move through you. Reduce emotional labor. Say no to situations that require you to manage everyone else's emotions, even temporarily. Emotional rest is about authenticity. It's about being allowed to feel what you feel without having to manage how it lands on other people. Type 6. Social rest. Social rest is tricky because it's not about being alone versus being with people. It's about the quality of your social interactions. Social rest is what you need when you've been around people who drain you and not enough around people who restore you. Here's how you know you need social rest. You're around people but feel lonely. You dread social obligations. You feel like you're performing in every interaction. You miss the people who actually get you. You're giving way more than you're receiving in your relationships. And here's how you actually get social rest. Spend time with people who energize you, the ones where you can be yourself, the ones who laugh at your jokes, the ones who don't require you to perform. Reduce time with people who drain you. Not forever, not dramatically, just reduce it. You're allowed to protect your energy. Be selective on social media. Unfollow people who make you feel bad. Mute the group chats that exhaust you. Curate your feed to be restorative, not depleting. Practice saying no to invitations that feel like obligations, to people who only take, to relationships that cost more than they give. Ask for what you need. If you need people to stop venting at you, say so. If you need reciprocity, ask for it. If you need space, take it. Social rest is about quality over quantity. It's about surrounding yourself with people and interactions that add to your life instead of depleting it. Type 7. Spiritual rest. Spiritual rest is the hardest to define because it's not religious unless you want it to be. It's about meaning, purpose, connection to something bigger than yourself. Spiritual rest is what you need when life feels pointless, when you're going through the motions but nothing feels meaningful, when you've lost your sense of why any of this matters. Here's how you know you need spiritual rest. Reconnect with your values. What actually matters to you, not what should matter, what does matter. Write it down. Let yourself remember. Do something that feels meaningful. Volunteer, create, help someone, contribute to something bigger than your own life. Practice gratitude, not toxic positivity, real gratitude, for the small things, for what's working, for what you have. Spend time in awe. Look at the stars. Stand in the ocean. Witness something that reminds you how small you are and how big the universe is. Connect to community. Not just any community, a community that shares your values, where you feel like you belong. Spiritual rest is about remembering why you're here, what you're working towards, what makes this life worth living. Your personal rest prescription. Here's what I want you to do right now. Go through those 7 types of rest and honestly assess which tanks are empty. Physical? Maybe, but probably not your biggest issue. Mental? If your brain won't shut up, this is critical. Sensory? If everything feels too loud, too bright, too much, you need this badly. Creative? If life feels gray and uninspiring, this is missing. Emotional? If you've been performing and suppressing, this is urgent. Social? If you're lonely in crowds or drained by your relationships, this needs attention. Spiritual? If nothing feels meaningful, start here. You probably need more than one. Most people do. But start with the one that resonates most. The one where you thought, oh, that's me. Rest is not selfish. Before we move to the next chapter, I need you to hear this. Rest is not selfish. Rest is not lazy. Rest is not giving up. Rest is not indulgent. Rest is how you survive. It's how you function. It's how you show up for the people and things that actually matter. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You've heard that before, but what you might not realize is that you have 7 cups, and you've been trying to fill one while the other 6 stay empty. No wonder nothing's working. Chapter 8. Micro Habits for Energy. Let me tell you why every self-help book you've ever read has failed you. They tell you to wake up at 5 a.m., meditate for 20 minutes, journal for 30, work out for an hour, eat a perfect breakfast, read for 45 minutes, plan your day, visualize your goals, practice gratitude, and do all of this before 8 a.m. And you read it and think, yes, this is it. This is what I need. You try it for exactly 1 day, maybe 2 if you're really motivated, and then you crash because you're already exhausted. You don't have the energy for a complete life overhaul. You barely have the energy to get out of bed. So you give up, and you add failed at self-improvement to your list of reasons you're inadequate. Here's what they don't tell you. Big changes require energy, and you don't have any. That's the entire problem. So we're not doing big changes. We're doing the opposite. We're doing changes so small that they require almost no energy, so easy you can't fail, so low effort that even at your worst, you can still do them. Welcome to micro habits, the only kind of habit that works when you're already depleted. The concept of low floors. There's a principle in behavioral psychology called lowering the floor. It means making the entry point to a behavior so easy that there's virtually no barrier to starting. Most people set the floor too high. They say, I'm going to run 5 miles. But when you're exhausted, 5 miles is impossible, so you don't run at all. A low floor would be, I'm going to put on my running shoes. That's it. You don't have to run. You don't even have to go outside. Just put on the shoes. And here's what happens. Sometimes you put on the shoes and that's all you do. And that's fine. That counts. You succeeded. But other times, you put on the shoes and think, well, I'm already wearing shoes. I might as well step outside. And then you're outside, and you think, I might as well walk to the corner. And before you know it, you're running. Not because you forced yourself, but because you made the first step so easy that the rest of it became possible. That's the power of low floors. They don't require willpower. They require almost nothing. And that's exactly what you need right now. Micro habit number 1, the 5-minute morning. Forget the elaborate morning routine. Forget the hour-long ritual. We're going to start with 5 minutes. Here's your new morning routine. Minute 1, before you reach for your phone, take 3 deep breaths. That's it. In through your nose, out through your mouth, 3 times. Minute 2, while still in bed, think of one thing you're grateful for. Not the big stuff. Not my family or my health in some abstract way. One specific small thing. The way your pillow feels. The fact that it's not Monday. The fact that you slept at all. Minute 3. Drink a glass of water. You probably have one by your bed. If you don't, put one there tonight. Drink it before coffee, before anything else. Minute 4. Move your body for 60 seconds. Not exercise, just movement. Stretch in bed, roll your shoulders, stand up and reach for the ceiling, shake out your arms, anything that says to your body, we're awake now. Minute 5. Set one intention for the day. Not a to-do list, not 5 goals. One thing. Today, I will be kind to myself. Today, I will notice one beautiful thing. Today, I will ask for help if I need it. That's it. 5 minutes. And you're not trying to become a different person. You're just gently waking up your nervous system. You're telling your body and brain, we're starting the day with care, not chaos. Micro habit number 2, the transition ritual. One of the biggest energy drains nobody talks about is transitions, moving from one activity to another, going from work mode to home mode, switching from one task to another. Your brain hates transitions. They cost energy. And when you're already exhausted, transitions are where you get stuck. So we're going to make transitions easier with a simple ritual, something that signals to your brain, we're changing modes now. Let go of the last thing, prepare for the next. Transitions become easier. Switching modes becomes less exhausting. You stop bleeding energy every time you have to do something different. Micro habit number 3, the energy check-in. Most people don't realize they're depleted until they're already past the breaking point. They push through, ignore the signals, and then crash catastrophically. We're going to fix that with a simple check-in. 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening, you're going to pause for 30 seconds and ask yourself 2 questions. Question 1. What's my energy level right now? Rate it 1 to 10. Don't overthink it, just notice. Question 2. What do I need most right now? Physical rest? Mental rest? Sensory rest? Food? Water? Movement? Connection? Silence? That's it. You're not fixing anything yet, you're just noticing. You're building awareness of your energy patterns. And here's what happens over time. You start catching the dip before it becomes a crash. You notice, oh, I'm at a 4, I should probably eat something. Or, I'm at a 3, and I have 2 more hours of work. I need to take a real break, not just scroll my phone. You stop pushing past your limits because you actually know where your limits are. Micro habit number 4, the permission list. You know how you have a to-do list, all the things you're supposed to accomplish? We're creating the opposite, a permission list, a list of things you're allowed to do when you're too tired to do anything else. Here are some examples. I have permission to order food instead of cooking. I have permission to cancel plans if I need to. I have permission to do the bare minimum at work today. I have permission to leave dishes in the sink overnight. I have permission to watch TV for hours without guilt. I have permission to say no without explaining why. I have permission to be unproductive. I have permission to ask for help. I have permission to cry if I need to. I have permission to rest before I've earned it. Write your own list. Put it somewhere you'll have permission to be human, to have limits, to need rest even when you haven't accomplished everything. Micro habit number 5, the 2-minute wind down. Most people try to go from 100 miles per hour straight into sleep, and then they wonder why they can't fall asleep or why their sleep isn't restorative. Your nervous system needs a transition. It needs a signal that says the day is over, it's safe to rest now. We're going to give it that signal with a 2-minute wind down. Every night, right before bed, you do this. Step 1, 30 seconds, dim all the lights, close the curtains, make your environment as dark as possible. Step 2, 30 seconds, put your phone in another room, or at minimum on airplane mode, face down across the room. If you use it as an alarm, buy a $10 alarm clock. Step 3, 60 seconds, lie down and do a body scan. Starting at your head, slowly move your attention down your body. Notice where you're holding tension. Breathe into those spots. Let them soften. That's it. 2 minutes, and your nervous system gets the message. It's time to rest. You're not trying to force sleep. You're just creating the conditions where sleep becomes easier. Micro habit number 6, the energy protector. This one is about prevention, about stopping energy leaks before they happen. Every week, you're going to protect 1 hour, just one. 1 hour where you do absolutely nothing you don't want to do. Not nothing productive, not relaxation that looks a certain way. Literally anything you want, or nothing at all. You can sit and stare at the wall, you can take a bath, you can watch trash TV, you can lie on the floor and listen to music, you can nap, you can doodle, you can do nothing. The point is, it's yours, completely yours. No obligations, no shoulds, no one else's needs. And here's the rule. This hour is non-negotiable. It's as important as a doctor's appointment. You don't cancel it because something else came up. You don't give it away because someone needs you. You don't feel guilty about it. 1 hour a week where your energy is only for you. Start there, and if that feels good, add another hour and another, until you have regular pockets of time that are protected from the energy vampires in your life. Micro habit number 7, the celebration practice. When you're exhausted, your brain only notices what you didn't do, all the things left undone, all the ways you failed to meet your own expectations. This habit flips that. Every night before bed, you're going to celebrate 3 things you did that day. And the rule is they have to be small, embarrassingly small. I got out of bed. I drank water. I fed myself. I replied to one text. I didn't snap at someone even though I wanted to. I took a shower. I asked for help. I rested when I needed to. Big accomplishments don't count. We're not celebrating finishing projects or hitting goals. We're celebrating the fact that you survived, that you showed up for yourself in small ways, that you did what you could with the energy you had. This retrains your brain. Instead of ending the day with everything you didn't do, you end it with evidence that you did enough, that you are enough. Why micro habits work. Here's why this approach is different from everything else you've tried. They don't require willpower. Willpower is a limited resource, and you don't have any. These habits are so small they bypass the need for willpower entirely. They don't require time. You're not adding hours to your day, you're adding minutes, sometimes seconds. They don't require energy. That's the whole point. These are designed for people who have nothing left. They don't require perfection. You can do them badly. You can do them inconsistently. You can do them halfway, and they still count. They build momentum. Small wins create more energy, which creates more capacity for change, which creates more wins. The cycle starts to reverse. You're not trying to become a productivity machine. You're not trying to optimize your life. You're just trying to stop the bleeding, to stabilize, to give yourself a foundation to build from. The compound effect of small changes. Here's what happens when you implement even a few of these micro habits. Week 1, you're skeptical. They feel too small to matter, but you try them because you're desperate and nothing else has worked. Week 2, you notice something subtle. Maybe you're sleeping slightly better. Maybe transitions are a little less jarring. Maybe you're not quite as irritable. Week 3, you realize you have slightly more energy. Not a lot, but enough to maybe add one more micro habit or to do the existing ones a little more consistently. Week 4, people start asking if something's different. You're not sure. You don't feel fixed, but you're not actively deteriorating anymore. You've stopped the free fall. Month 2, you have a bad day and you don't completely spiral. You use your habits. They actually help. You recover faster. Month 3, you realize you're not thinking about how tired you are every single second. It's still there, but it's not the only thing anymore. This is not a dramatic transformation. This is not a before and after montage. This is slow, steady, sustainable change, the only kind that actually lasts. Start with 1. I know what you're thinking. That's still a lot. That's 7 habits. I don't have energy for 7 habits. You're right. So don't do 7, do 1. Pick the one that resonated most, the one that made you think, I could actually do that, and do only that one for a week. Then, if you want, add another, or don't. 1 is infinitely better than 0. Because here's the truth. You don't need to overhaul your entire life to feel better. You just need to stop actively depleting yourself and start giving yourself tiny moments of care. That's it. That's the whole strategy. Micro habits, low floors, small wins, repeated consistently. Not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you're trying to survive in a way that doesn't destroy you. Chapter 9. The New Normal. We're almost at the end. You've made it this far. That alone tells me something about you. You haven't given up on yourself. Even when you're exhausted, even when it feels impossible, you're still here, still trying, still hoping there's a way through this. There is. But before we close, I need to tell you something that might be hard to hear. This isn't a problem you solve once and then forget about. This is a way of living you have to maintain. Because the world that made you exhausted, it's still out there. The pressures, the expectations, the dopamine traps, the emotional labor, none of that has changed. What has to change is how you navigate it, how you protect yourself, how you recognize when you're slipping before you fall all the way back down. This final chapter is about maintenance, about building a life where exhaustion doesn't keep winning, about creating a new normal that's actually sustainable. Let's talk about the marathon, not the sprint. The relapse pattern. Here's what usually happens when people start feeling better. You implement some changes, you start resting more, you set some boundaries, you feel a little energy returning, and then you think, great, I'm fixed. I can go back to how things were. So you do. You take on more, you say yes to things, you push a little harder, you let the boundaries slip, and within weeks, sometimes days, you're right back where you started, exhausted, depleted, wondering what went wrong. Nothing went wrong. You just forgot that the changes you made weren't a temporary fix. They were the thing keeping you afloat, and when you stopped doing them, you started sinking again. The changes aren't a bridge to your old life. They are your new life. Sustainable pacing. Let me introduce you to a concept that will change everything. Pacing. Pacing is not about going slow. It's about going at a speed you can maintain indefinitely. It's about recognizing that life is not a sprint. It's not even a series of sprints. It's a marathon. And if you run a marathon at sprint speed, you collapse before the finish line. Here's what sustainable pacing looks like. You work, then you rest. Not work, work, work until you collapse, then rest. Work, rest. Work, rest. The rest is not optional. It's part of the cycle. You say yes to some things and no to others. Not yes to everything until you're burned out. Not no to everything until you're isolated. Some yes, some no, based on your capacity, not on what you think you should be able to handle. You have good days and bad days, and you adjust accordingly. On good days, you do more. On bad days, you do less. You don't punish yourself for the bad days. You don't use the good days as evidence that you should be performing at that level all the time. You build in buffer. You don't schedule yourself at 100% capacity. You leave space for the unexpected, for rest, for life, for the fact that you're human, and humans need margins. Sustainable pacing means you never get to the point of depletion in the first place, because you're resting before you're desperate. You're slowing down before you crash. The early warning signs. You need to learn what your early warning signs are, the signals your body sends before you're fully depleted, because if you catch it early, you can course correct. If you wait until you're already crashed, recovery takes so much longer. Common early warning signs. You start skipping the micro habits that were helping. You're more irritable than usual. You start canceling plans, even ones you were looking forward to. Your sleep quality drops. You reach for cheap dopamine more often. You stop enjoying things you normally enjoy. You feel off but can't name why. You start thinking, I don't have time to rest right now. That last one is the biggest red flag. When you feel like you can't afford to rest, that's when you need it most. So here's what you do. Create your own personal early warning system. Write down your specific signs, the things that show up when you're starting to slip. And when you notice even one of them, you intervene immediately. You don't push through. You don't wait. You rest. You scale back. You say no to something. You protect your energy before it's completely gone. The capacity equation. Here's a formula that will help you make decisions. Energy available minus energy required equals remaining capacity. Before you say yes to anything, a project, a social event, a favor, a commitment, you calculate, how much energy do I currently have? Be honest. How much energy will this require? Be realistic, not optimistic. Will I have enough left over for the essentials? If the answer is no, you don't do it, even if you want to, even if you feel guilty, even if people are disappointed. Because here's what happens when you consistently operate at zero capacity. Everything suffers. Your work suffers, your relationships suffer, your health suffers, you suffer. But when you maintain a buffer, when you keep some capacity in reserve, everything gets better. You have energy for the things that matter. You recover faster from stress. You don't live on the edge of collapse. You're not being selfish. You're being sustainable. The permission to change your mind. Here's something exhausted people struggle with: flexibility. You make a plan, you commit to something, and then you realize, I don't actually have the energy for this. But you do it anyway because you already said yes, because you don't want to let people down, because changing your mind feels like failure. But rigidity is exhausting, and the new normal requires flexibility. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to say, I thought I could do this, but I can't. You're allowed to cancel, to adjust, to recognize that what felt doable yesterday doesn't feel doable today. This doesn't make you unreliable. It makes you honest, and the people who matter will understand that. The ones who don't, they were benefiting from your self-betrayal, and you don't owe them that. Building a life that doesn't require recovery. Here's the ultimate goal, a life that doesn't deplete you in the first place. Not a life where you never get tired, that's impossible, but a life where the tired is temporary, not chronic, where you can rest and actually recover, where you're not constantly in survival mode. What does that life look like? Work that doesn't destroy you. Either the work itself aligns with your values, or the boundary between work and life is firm enough that work doesn't bleed into everything else. Relationships that are reciprocal, where you're not the only one giving, where you can be yourself without performing, where the energy flows both ways. A schedule that has breathing room, where you're not sprinting from one thing to the next, where rest is built in, not something you have to fight for. A nervous system that's mostly regulated, where you're not constantly in fight or flight, where you feel safe enough to rest, where stress is the exception, not the baseline. This might sound impossible right now. It might sound like a fantasy, but it's not. It's what happens when you stop accepting exhaustion as normal and start building a life around your actual needs instead of other people's expectations. The life you're building. Let's be very clear. This is not a quick fix. This is not a 30-day challenge. This is a fundamental restructuring of how you exist in the world. Some days it will feel like progress. Other days it will feel like you're back at square one. That's normal. That's part of the process. You're unlearning decades of conditioning. You're setting boundaries with people who are used to you having none. You're choosing yourself in a world that's taught you that's selfish. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. It's worth it. Because on the other side of this work is a version of your life where you wake up and don't immediately feel dread about the day ahead. You can handle normal stress without completely falling apart. You have energy for the things you actually care about. You can rest without guilt. You can say no without over-explaining. You can be yourself without exhausting yourself. That's the new normal we're building. Not perfect, not effortless, but sustainable. The final challenge. I'm going to leave you with one final challenge, not something to do, something to stop doing. For the next week, I want you to stop apologizing for having needs. Stop saying, "I'm sorry, but I need to rest." Just rest. Stop saying, "I'm sorry, but I can't take that on." Just say no. Stop saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not more energetic today." You don't owe anyone your energy. Stop saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not further along." You're exactly where you need to be. Your needs are not an inconvenience. Your limits are not a personal failing. Your exhaustion is not evidence that you're not trying hard enough. You're trying. You've been trying. You've been trying so hard that you've exhausted yourself. And now it's time to try something different. Stop trying to be someone you're not. Stop trying to meet standards that aren't yours. Stop trying to live up to expectations that are killing you. Just be. Just rest. Just exist without justification. You've always been enough. Before we close, I need you to hear one more thing. You are not lazy. You never were. You are not broken. You're healing. You are not behind. You're exactly where you are, and that's exactly where you need to be. You didn't fail at life. You succeeded at surviving in a world that demands too much and gives too little. And now you're learning to live instead of just survive. You're learning to rest, to protect your energy, to build a life that doesn't destroy you. That's not easy work. That's some of the hardest work there is, and you're doing it. I'm proud of you. And I need you to be proud of yourself, not for what you've accomplished, not for how well you've performed, but for the fact that you're still here, still trying, still believing that a better way is possible. Because it is possible. You're building it right now, one micro habit at a time, one boundary at a time, one moment of rest at a time. The beginning, not the end. This audiobook is ending, but your journey is just beginning. You now know what's been draining you. The incomplete stress cycles, the dopamine traps, the perfectionism, the emotional labor, the shoulds, the wrong kinds of rest, the habits that deplete instead of restore. And you know what to do about it. The 7 types of rest, the micro habits, the boundaries, the permission to be human. You have everything you need. Now it's just about doing it. Not perfectly, not all at once, just consistently, just sustainably, just enough. This is a marathon, not a sprint, so pace yourself, be patient with yourself, celebrate the small wins, forgive the setbacks, keep going. Because you deserve a life that doesn't exhaust you. You deserve rest that actually restores you. You deserve to feel like yourself again. And you will, not today, not tomorrow, but gradually, slowly, sustainably. One day, you'll wake up and realize you're not tired anymore, not the way you were, and you'll remember this moment when you first started to believe that change was possible. That day is coming. Keep going. You're closer than you think. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for not giving up on yourself. Now go rest. You've earned it. Not because you've done enough, but because you exist, and that's enough. That's always been enough.